Shalom. This is Mary Omni, also known as Mary Magdalene, from the house of King David. Some people may call me Isis. I'm just asking you to consider that I am who I say I am. I am the woman of Revelations 12 and Galatians 4:4. Please refer to the Bible. And like I said before, just consider. That's it. Consider that I am who I say I am. This is the Republic notice to Ann Coulter and her Black Civil Rights Understanding. Ann Coulter has been promoting the fact that civil rights belong to blacks, and she's correct on that, because the 1866 Civil Rights Act was inherited, which means that blacks couldn't consent for it. Blacks are non-consenters. 3/5 couldn't consent for anything. So therefore, they didn't consent to the constitutional contract. And that's the supreme contract, which gave them immunity to all contracts. They are the privileged and immune by the fact of non-consent. No one else in America or the world have this in the supreme contract. And since all contracts now are connected around the world through the UN, the European Union, the UN, and all this globalization, blacks are the only Teflon in truth in the world with non-consent supremacy by supreme contract. And so they inherited 1866 nationality. And yet people still calling them community, and they calling themselves a community. They have been a nation since 1866, a national citizen since 1866, national persons. That was constitutionalized in 1868, which they inherited the 14th, which means they didn't consent for it. Therefore, the 1866 Civil Rights Act and the 1868 14th Amendment are both non-consented. Okay, and the Constitution after that became non-consented because the citizens in it are the non-consenters with supreme jurisdiction, because 1866 gave blacks contractual enforcement rights nationally and in all contracting jurisdictions with the United States. And therefore, they are the non-consenters. So Ann Coulter is correct. There is no civil rights that belongs to gays, women, unless they're constitutional inheritor, black woman of the 14th. Gays, women, other children in this country, or, for any reason, Chinese, or any other body, because it's been non-consented. Now, I know, you got 200 million people, 300 million people want to act like this Constitution don't exist because they want to be privileged and they want to act like they can just come to this country and impose their self inside of it. You can't. The 15th Amendment is an inherited voting amendment, and it's guaranteed, and it don't depend on outsiders, or nor do it depend whether or not you run to the booth and vote for a black person. The 15th Amendment is the black man's vote, and this is the supreme vote, and it can nullify 900 quintillion votes. So it doesn't depend on consenters of incorporate doctrine and how much they run to these polls and these machines like animals in a majority herd that cannot comprehend a republic because they're too ignorant or too low in mental species to comprehend how a constitutional republic works and how it supremes the minority. And when that minority is the supreme, that means you can have all the votes on the earth and it don't matter because that minority is supreme. But animals can't comprehend this. And this is what our Constitution writers knew. That's why they blocked animals with the non-consent supremacy jurisdiction of blacks who couldn't consent. And that's why they protected their blood, sweat, and tears that they put in this Constitution by putting non-consenters as the supremacy clause. The black woman is the supremacy clause, and she gives birth to all persons born, and she gives birth to the black man, 15 supreme vote, who is the New Jerusalem wall. So Ann Ann Coulter is correct, but she needs to understand through that correction that calling herself a Republican, she overlooks a lot, because the Republican Party has been non-consented, and she should know those who inherited the civil rights were the founders of the Republican Party in 1867. Therefore, civil rights is not due to anybody, and neither is the Republican Party due to you, Ann Coulter. You have nothing to do with the Republican Party. First of all, it was founded by men. And if anybody is going to be in there, it's going to be the black women that the men came out of the womb of. It's not going to be any Edomite women who think that they're going to somehow be the Republican Party. The Republican Party was founded by the 15th supremacy vote of black men, and that non-consented all people who look like Ann Coulter or her male kind. You know, they are consenters. They are consenters. That means they consented to come here. But when they came here, or even if they was here before, they're still consenters. And the 15th is the New Jerusalem Wall that founded and protects the 1867 founding of the Republican Party. Now, what they got and what you have, Ann Coulter, is in the corporate doctrine dung-pasted Republican Party. You're not part of the Republic. As a matter of fact, you Republicans don't even know what a republic is. You act lower than animals, you know, and just think if you can just trample and infringe enough and accuse the Democratic Party of having blacks on the plantation and liberals just using blacks. The truth of it is blacks have contractuality on the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Both has been non-consented and sealed since 1868 and 1870. Both parties have been sealed. So Caucasians and Edomites and all these tramplers of all different races following them are really playing in dung and paste contracts with their self. And if they was as smart as they say they was, they would be smart enough to be debt free like blacks in the Constitution who didn't consent and took the whip for 3 to 4 years not to serve Satan or suck his phallus and consent to his debt and theft type of governance or type of rule, because he promised y'all the world and y'all sucked the privilege as much as y'all wanted to suck it, but y'all have thousands and thousands and thousands of years of debt built up, and not only that, you have promised Satan your soul for your fake privilege and to get and for you, Ann Coulter, to accuse the Democratic Party and for the Democratic Party to accuse you. All these are sold souls because neither one of you have anything. And as far as Republicans, that's the big elephant in the room, that the Republican Party has been non-consented since 1868 and sealed since 1870. And your corporate doctrine contracts are just playing in mule dung. And you've been able to infringe. Yeah, a dog can trample on property, but that doesn't change the deed. It just shows the behavior of an animal, okay? And the same for the party founded by Thomas Jefferson, the Democratic Republic Party that was founded by Thomas Jefferson. It is constitutional property and been non-consented since 1868. And that is the mule. And the mule came with the 40 acres. And the 40 acres and the mule is the U.S. corporation of 1871 that King Yeshua parked right outside the 15th Amendment New Jerusalem Wall to catch dung contractors like you and Coulter and all them Republicans along with you who think you running games around black people head when all you do is saying that you know nothing else but dung abominations and pasting dung contracts together and pretending intelligence. You can pretend all intelligence in the world, but you don't know how to escape all them dung contracts in, because really the U.S. corporation don't have one amendment, yet you all refer to this as your government without one amendment. But it's the mule and the mother mule of Judah of black Americans, and it's subservient to the Constitution, that the Constitution have 1 to 27 amendments. Another thing, Ann Coulter, is just because you so-called think you have the 19th Amendment, which use the non-consented words of the 15th, don't mean you could just come come from the 19th and jump over the 15th and 11th, because none of that have anything to do with you. First of all, the 1 to 15th amendments is a non-consented jurisdiction government. So after that, anything that is legislated or any amendments that was written on this land after the 1 to 15th amendment, that means they became non-jurisdiction governance property. Because see, blacks are coextensive with the Constitution. In other words, blacks are the walking Constitution. Now, the propaganda of infringement and the propaganda of your trampling and pasting done contracts has calcified your pineal glands enough to even believe your own rhetoric. Sometimes I thought you were smart enough and not playing a game with your own rhetoric, but I think it had, there's some retardation there, more so than you're being evil. And you are evil, the majority of you, but you have some retardation too, because you think you're intelligent while you're all in abomination contracts in debt. And blacks are not in debt. They're debt free because they're non-consenters, and the Constitution holds no debt. It's only squatters in the state, the individual squatters under corporate doctrines, that hold the state. Because see, there's no such thing as an amendment that do not have a constitutional jurisdiction ownership on this land. Because if it's written on this land, the Constitution owns it. And first of all, the first 1 to 15 amendments is the prior preemptive government of the Republic. It's one nation under God to the Republic. Not all public who impose and infringe and transgress and then try to build up a law in their mind and their delusion. So this is what I want you to understand. If you understand that civil rights belong to black Americans, then you understand that you're a Republican and you're a dung contractor and you have no constitutionality whatsoever under your corporate doctrine dung contracts. This is Mary Omni from the House of King David, and I'm the woman of Galatians 4:4, the woman of the law.